Well, hello and howdy, everybody. This is General Beauregard for Football South. And as always, on Football South, the General Beauregard takes time to relate you a pertinent SEC story time. Yes, sir, today we've got a story to tell you. It was quite a story today. Quite a story today. Let me get my traveling bulldog band to hush it down just a little bit so I can talk. I sure like that fighting song though. It's a mighty pretty tune. We'll just keep that right there. See, this is story time for General Beauregard. There's only really one character that needs to be introduced to a tonight story, and that's a gentleman called Silas. I guess a lot of people would call him something like a booster or something like that. But anyway, every team's got their little version of what we call Silas. Now, Silas is particularly adept at going to the enemy schools, and somehow when he goes, things just don't turn out right. Nobody can point no fingers at him because he's an upright sort. But nonetheless, we had rumors that Silas, who's a Georgia fan apparently, was visiting Knoxville, Tennessee during the last home game at General Neyland Stadium, whatever they call that place now. But the Tennessee Volunteers was playing a ball game with the Ole Miss Rebels, and it should have been a real dilly. There, Ole Miss finally had a good football team. Well, it was just like the good old days, back when Rocky Top was the king. Yes, sir, this was a football Saturday at Neyland Stadium, and they had been resurrected and was back in the limelight of college football, having beaten, they beat somebody. Tennessee had just beaten two teams rather harshly, scoring 62 points and 42 points in successive weeks, and their fan base was rabid. Ole Miss come in with a Heisman Trophy candidate, Pat Corrales, what was his name? Anyway, so it's one of them kind of stories. A big football game in the land of the Power T. Now, from this point, you need to understand that there's a gentleman named Silas visiting the Power T region, which is Tennessee's territory, Knoxville and throughout. That's called Power T country. That's what they live and die by, just like here, it's Bulldog country. The big orange country, with the Power T as a symbol. Now that you understand all that, understand that this football game wasn't going too good for the Volunteers. They was finding themselves struggling to stay in the game, but they was, in fact, doing so. See, the secret to this offense for the Volunteers was to go at them quick, what they call a fast-paced offense. And they was running plays real quick, but Ole Miss discovered that when they called timeout due to injury, the clock would stop and slow down. This high-powered offense was relying on deception more than talent. And that caused Tennessee to suffer in the football game. And all these Vols for life, these Tennessee Volunteers for life, Vols for life in the stadium, proudly identifying themselves with various manner, were abundant in the stadium. It was covered with orange and loud and a terrible place to try to play a football game if you're not a Tennessee Volunteer. However, Ole Miss was leading, taking control of the game, you might say, but Tennessee was down to only like 5 points, I reckon. A touchdown would have won this thing nice and clean, and Tennessee late in the game was driving to get that touchdown, and we won't even talk about the heartbreak with that. But it turns out that there was a measurement for a first down near the 20-something yard line, so Tennessee did not make that first down with just a few minutes left in the game. I'm thinking 3 or 4 minutes, might have been 3 minutes. He didn't get the first down, and these Tennessee volunteers erupted and threw everything on the field, and mayhem was ensued, and y'all all know all about it. But now, General Beauregard's story time is going to tell you what really happened. Well, you see, there was a mumbling about the penalties, or the lack thereof, concerning Ole Miss faking injury to slow down that raging Tennessee offense. And then somebody got them folks a-talking. All them balls for life started whispering and murmuring. And our little gentleman, Silas, didn't even go to the game, the one that causes all the trouble down there. No, Silas didn't go to the game. He just watched it a tad from the hotel. Now, in the hotel where a lot of Tennessee folk was there, mostly drinking, gambling, and a-grumbling. Now, of course, it'd be ever self-respecting ball for life that brought his mustard bottle and golf balls naturally to the game. It's called home field for a reason. And Tennessee and reason don't ever mix well, and it didn't come close this Saturday. But Tennessee's always been a rough crowd. Mountain folk and city slickers converge and agree that clogging is okay, square dancing's okay, and so is drinking, dancing, gambling, and a-winning. And they all sing Rocky Top as a peace sacrilege to the disparate clans that ring the mountains and the hard types along the river, and the button-down Baptist in the flatland, and the Pentecostal in the valley, and the stepped ridges that span westerly as the mountains drill into Appalachia's blue eternity. This, the power tea, takes its roots and is stored in cellars and smokehouses, as well as the boulevards and viaducts of the Tennessee Valley Authority. The power tea is the focus, and football its colors. Now, folks, you add all that together, and a scoundrel had returned, a scoundrel that had destroyed the institution not even much more than a decade earlier. Here he come back in full swagger, bringing this Ole Miss football team was going to beat them Tennessee Vols right in their own place. He was a mocking as before, and you get yourself some baked beans like that, and they're going to need constant attention, let me tell you. And so in all this, attention was lacking among the federales and stripes, the SEC-style officials there, and the local hooligans had had enough, and Tennessee pride became a thing of the past, but not to the end of this moment where Bedlam was tempted and mayhem enticed, ended in a simple, dreary version of Hold My Beer. And that was the Tennessee home game in Neyland Stadium, where Vols for life threw golf balls and mustard at their own cheerleaders. But I didn't see Silas there at all.